I'm Ethan Mitchell, 32 years old, and 5 years ago I co-signed my parents' $380,000 mortgage as a favor. Big mistake. On December 20th, my father left a voicemail that changed everything. Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer. Years of tension had finally snapped. Dad always used money to control us, but this time was different. I didn't argue or call back. I just texted. Understood. Then I made a decision that would shake our family to its core. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to join me on this wild journey of standing up for yourself. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, I always knew my family was different. My father, Nathan Mitchell, now 61, built a successful construction supply business through sheer determination and an iron will. That same will dominated our household. Every decision, from what we ate for dinner to which colleges we could apply to, passed through his approval process. My mother, Diane, 58, played the role of peacekeeper, smoothing over Dad's harsh edges while never actually standing against him. "Your father knows best," she'd whisper after he'd tear into me for getting a B+ instead of an A. "He just wants you to succeed." My younger sister Rachel, 29, learned early to navigate Dad's moods. She still lives at home, working at his company, her life completely intertwined with his approval. I took a different path. College was my first taste of real independence. I attended University of Massachusetts on scholarship, much to my father's disappointment. He wanted me at his alma mater, Boston College, and offered to pay my way there. "Real men don't take handouts," he told me when I chose the scholarship. The irony that his payment would have been the ultimate handout seemed lost on him. After graduation, I landed a job with a software company, moved into my own apartment, and began building a life beyond my father's reach. This created an uneasy peace between us. He couldn't directly control me anymore, but family gatherings remained tense affairs where he'd remind me how I could be doing better if I'd listen to someone who knows something about success. Then came the mortgage situation. 5 years ago, my parents decided to refinance their home to fund an expansion of my father's business. The timing couldn't have been worse. The business had hit a rough patch, and their credit wasn't strong enough to secure the rate they wanted. "It's just a formality," Dad explained over dinner. "Your income will help us qualify. You won't actually have to pay anything." Mom added, "We'd ask Rachel, but you know she doesn't make enough at the company yet." The pressure was subtle but unmistakable. This was my chance to give back. After all they'd done for me. When I hesitated, my father grew cold. "I paid for your braces. I bought your first car. I put food on your table for 18 years. And now when I need one simple signature, you have to think about it." I signed. The document made me a co-borrower on a $380,000 mortgage. No ownership stake in the house, just full legal responsibility for the debt. Looking back, it was just another in a long pattern of financial manipulation. Throughout my childhood, money and gifts always came with strings attached. Christmas was particularly difficult. Presents would be lavish, but the aftermath always included detailed accounting of how much had been spent on me and what was expected in return. "That PlayStation cost me $400. He'd remind me whenever I failed to express sufficient gratitude by doing exactly as he wanted. As I grew older, I tried to establish healthier boundaries. I declined financial help that would inevitably become a weapon later. This only intensified the tension, especially during holidays when the entire family gathered and my independence became more obvious. Then Melissa Turner entered my life 2 years ago. Smart, independent, and unwilling to walk on eggshells around my father, she quickly became his primary target. Our first Thanksgiving together was a disaster. "So you're in marketing?" he questioned her over turkey. "Isn't that just making people want things they don't need?" Ethan was raised to understand real value. Melissa handled it gracefully, but the message was clear: she wasn't good enough for the Mitchell family. My parents made little effort to hide their disapproval, constantly suggesting other women they thought would be more suitable. 3 weeks before that fateful voicemail, I had called to tell them Melissa and I were engaged. The conversation quickly turned ugly. "You're making a mistake," Dad growled. "That woman will drag you down. We didn't raise you to settle for someone like her." For the first time, I didn't back down. "Melissa is going to be my wife, Dad. I'd like your blessing, but I don't need it." The line went silent for a moment. Then, "We'll see about that. Remember who helped you get where you are." I knew exactly what he meant. The mortgage. The signature I'd regretted almost immediately. It had hung over every family interaction for 5 years, an invisible leash tugging me back whenever I tried to fully break free. What I didn't know then was that my father was planning to use it one final time. And that his attempt would backfire in ways none of us could have imagined. The voicemail arrived at 7:43 p.m. on December 20th. I was wrapping Christmas presents for Melissa's nieces when my phone buzzed. Seeing my father's name, I let it go to voicemail. We hadn't spoken since the engagement announcement, and I wasn't eager to ruin my evening. 5 minutes later, curiosity got the better of me. I played the message on speaker while Melissa sat beside me, her expression already concerned. "Ethan." My father's voice was cold, controlled, but with an undercurrent of rage I recognized from childhood. "Your mother and I have discussed your recent choices. We cannot and will not support this engagement. Consequently, you are no longer welcome for Christmas this year. The gifts we purchased will be returned. Furthermore, you should expect a call from Gregory Wilson, our attorney, after the holidays. There are financial matters that need resolving now that you've decided to separate yourself from this family's values. Do not attempt to contact us. Your mother is too upset to speak with you." The message ended. Melissa's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. I sat there, gift wrap forgotten, as 32 years of conditional love, manipulation, and control crystallized into perfect clarity. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I felt liberated. "I'm fine," I said, surprised to find it was true. "Actually, I'm better than fine." I picked up my phone, typed a single-word response to my father's tirade. "Understood." "That's it." Melissa looked concerned. "You're not going to call him back?" "No," I said. "He's right about one thing: there are financial matters that need resolving." That's when I remembered the mortgage. The $380,000 chain that linked me to my parents' financial decisions. For years I'd worried about what would happen if they missed payments or decided to leverage the house further. My credit, my financial future had been tied to their whims. "I need to call Tyler," I said, reaching for my phone again. Tyler Brooks had been my best friend since college. Unlike me, he'd followed his passion for finance, becoming a loan officer at a regional bank. More importantly, he understood toxic family dynamics, having escaped some of his own. "He's threatening you with a lawyer?" Tyler asked after I explained the situation. "Over getting engaged?" "It's more complicated than that," I said. "Dad's never approved of anyone I've dated, but Melissa really triggers him because she doesn't intimidate easily. Plus, there's the mortgage." "The one you co-signed?" "Man, I told you that was a bad idea." I know. But now I'm worried about what he might do. Could he refinance without me? Take out more equity? Damage my credit?" There was a pause on the line. "Actually," Tyler said slowly, "have you ever considered getting your name off that mortgage? Is that even possible?" I thought I was locked in until they refinanced or paid it off. "Not necessarily. You're a co-borrower without ownership interest, right? You don't actually own the house?" "Right. Just responsible for the debt." "Then there might be a way. The bank doesn't care who pays the loan as long as it gets paid. If your parents qualify on their own, you could potentially be removed. But they wouldn't have qualified on their own. That's why they needed me in the first place. That was 5 years ago. Their situation might be different now. Or..." He paused. "Maybe it's worse, and that's what your dad is worried about." The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. What if my father's business wasn't doing well? What if they were planning to leverage the house further, and my engagement to Melissa threatened that plan somehow? What do I need to do? I asked. Come to my branch tomorrow. Bring the original mortgage documents if you have them. We'll explore your options. After hanging up, I explained everything to Melissa. Her background in marketing had given her a keen sense for manipulation tactics, and she immediately recognized what was happening. He's bluffing with the lawyer, she said confidently. It's a power play. He thinks the threat will make you fall in line, apologize, break off our engagement. Probably, I agreed. But what if there's more to it? What if they're in financial trouble and need me to agree to something? All the more reason to protect yourself now, she said firmly. You can love your family without being financially entangled with them. That night I barely slept. I kept turning over every interaction with my parents over the past year, looking for clues. Dad's business complaints that I dismissed as his usual grumbling. Mom's increased anxiety about household expenses. Rachel's sudden promotion at the company that seemed to involve longer hours without much additional pay. By morning, I'd made my decision. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about the wedding. It was about finally breaking a pattern that had controlled my life for too long. I would remove myself from the mortgage if possible, not to hurt my parents, but to protect myself and my future with Melissa. As I showered and dressed for my meeting with Tyler, I felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time in my adult life, I was about to take concrete action to break free from my father's financial control. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. The next morning, I arrived at Commonwealth Bank with a folder containing every document related to my parents' mortgage. Tyler met me in the lobby, his usual casual demeanor replaced by professional composure. Let's use my office, he said, leading me through the building. Jackson Parker from the mortgage department will join us. He specializes in these situations. Jackson turned out to be a soft-spoken man in his 50s with reading glasses perched on his nose. He reviewed my documents carefully before speaking. So, Mr. Mitchell, you're a co-borrower on your parents' mortgage, correct? But you have no ownership interest in the property itself? That's right. No name on the deed, just a loan. And you're looking to remove yourself from this obligation? Yes. Is that possible? Jackson leaned back, fingers steepled. Potentially. There are 3 ways this typically happens. First, your parents could refinance the loan solely in their names. Second, they could sell the property and pay off the mortgage. Or third, the lender might agree to release you if your parents can demonstrate they can handle the payments on their own. And if they can't? I asked. Then you'd remain legally obligated unless they pursue one of the first 2 options. I explained my parents' initial financial situation and why I'd been needed as a co-signer. Jackson nodded, making notes. 5 years ago, the housing market was in a different place. Their equity position may have improved, especially if the property has appreciated. Do you know their current income situation? I hesitated. Not exactly. My father owns a construction supply business. I believe it's been unstable recently. Jackson's expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight raise of his eyebrow. I see. Well, we can initiate a co-borrower release request. Your parents will need to provide current financial information and consent to the removal. And if they don't consent? That complicates things, he admitted. But given that you have no ownership interest, you still have options. We can notify them of your intent to be removed and give them a time frame to refinance or find alternative arrangements. Tyler, who had been quietly observing, leaned forward. Ethan's concerned about potential refinancing or additional loans against the property. Is there any way to prevent that while this process is underway? Jackson considered this. We can place a note on the account indicating your request for removal. That would flag any refinancing attempts for additional review. For the next hour, we went through paperwork. I signed forms requesting my removal from the mortgage, provided updated financial information showing I could sustain myself without my parents' support, and authorized a credit check to verify my claims. Now comes the waiting period, Jackson explained as we finished. We'll need to notify your parents and give them an opportunity to respond. This usually takes 5 to 10 business days. What should I expect? I asked. They'll receive formal notification of your request to be removed. They'll be asked to provide financial documentation proving they can maintain the payments without your income. If they qualify, we'll process the release. If not, they'll need to consider refinancing or other options. As I stood to leave, a thought occurred to me. Is there any way my parents could know I've initiated this before your official notification? Jackson shook his head. We maintain strict confidentiality. Unless you tell them yourself, they won't know until our letter arrives. Outside the bank, Tyler walked me to my car. You okay, man? This is a big step. I took a deep breath of cold December air. I'm nervous, but it feels right. I should have done this years ago. Just be prepared, he warned. When they get that letter, all hell might break loose. I know. But I can't keep living with this financial sword hanging over my head. On the drive home, I called my Uncle Benjamin, my mother's brother and the only family member who had ever stood up to my father. After explaining the situation, I waited anxiously for his response. About damn time, he said finally. Nathan's been using that mortgage to keep you in line for years. Your mother's complained about it, though never to his face, of course. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Ethically? Absolutely. Your father manipulated you into that signature and has held it over you ever since. Practically speaking, though, be ready for fireworks. Nathan doesn't lose control gracefully. That evening, Melissa and I discussed contingency plans. We changed our security settings on social media, warned close friends there might be family drama coming, and even considered staying at a hotel when the bank's notification arrived at my parents' house. We could be overreacting, I said as we lay in bed that night. Maybe they'll just refinance, and that will be the end of it. Melissa propped herself up on one elbow, fixing me with her most pragmatic look. And maybe your father will apologize and welcome me to the family with open arms. But let's plan for reality, not fantasy. She was right, of course. Whatever my father's financial situation might be, his response to my asserting independence would not be calm acceptance. I had just signed the Declaration of Independence from his financial control, and revolutions are rarely peaceful. As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered how long we had before the notification arrived at my parents' house. The bank had said 5 to 10 business days, but with Christmas approaching, postal services would be overwhelmed. I had no way of knowing that the clock was already ticking faster than anyone anticipated. The bank's efficiency combined with expedited holiday mail would deliver the notification in just 48 hours, setting off a chain reaction that none of us were fully prepared for. The first missed call came at 6:17 a.m., 2 days after my meeting at the bank. I was in the shower when my phone started buzzing repeatedly on the bathroom counter. By the time I toweled off and checked the screen, I had 4 missed calls from my father, 2 from my mother, and 1 from Rachel. It's starting, I told Melissa, who was still half asleep. The letter must have arrived. She sat up immediately, fully alert. That was fast. What are you going to do? Nothing yet. Let's see what they have to say first. I listened to the first voicemail, my father's voice tight with barely controlled fury. What the hell do you think you're doing? Call me immediately. The second was more explicit. We just got some ridiculous letter from the bank about removing you from our mortgage. If this is your idea of a joke, it isn't funny. Call me back now. By the third message, the facade of control was cracking. Ethan Robert Mitchell, this is completely unacceptable. Do you have any idea what you're doing to your mother? To this family? Call me back or I swear to God I will drive down there myself. My mother's messages were predictably tearful. Ethan, honey, there must be some misunderstanding. Please call us back. Your father is very upset. We need to talk about this before things get worse. Rachel's approach was direct accusation. What the actual hell, Ethan? The bank says you're trying to bail on Mom and Dad's mortgage? After everything they've done for you? Dad's having a meltdown and Mom won't stop crying. Fix this. Now. Throughout the morning, the calls continued at regular intervals. I silenced my phone but watched as the notification count climbed. By noon, I had 17 missed calls and 9 voicemails. You can't ignore them forever, Melissa pointed out as we ate lunch. I'm not planning to, I assured her. But responding now, when Dad's at peak rage, won't accomplish anything. Let's give them time to process what's happening. Around 2 o'clock, my phone displayed an unfamiliar number with our hometown area code. I let it go to voicemail. Mr. Mitchell, this is Gregory Wilson, your parents' attorney. I understand there's a situation developing regarding your parents' mortgage. Please call me at your earliest convenience to discuss potential resolutions before this escalates unnecessarily. So my father hadn't been bluffing about the lawyer after all. That was unexpected, but not alarming. Attorney Wilson's measured tone suggested he was more interested in mediation than threats. By evening, the combined missed calls from family members had reached 23. I sent a brief text to my mother. I'm safe and will be in touch soon. This isn't personal. Her response came instantly. How can you say this isn't personal? Your father had to take his blood pressure medication. Please call us, Ethan. The next morning, Friday, brought a new wave of communication attempts. My father had switched tactics, alternating between threats and offers of reconciliation. This doesn't have to be like this. One voicemail began almost reasonably before concluding with, but if you force my hand, don't expect any mercy. Rachel sent a long text detailing the chaos I'd created. Dad's been on the phone with the bank all morning. Mom couldn't go to her book club because she's too embarrassed. I had to take a day off work to help them deal with this mess you created. Whatever point you're trying to make, it's not worth destroying our family. Around noon, I received an email from Commonwealth Bank confirming that my parents had been officially notified of my removal request and had 72 hours to respond with financial documentation or alternative arrangements. It's really happening, I told Melissa that evening. After 5 years, I'm finally cutting the financial cord. How does it feel? She asked, studying my expression. Terrifying. Liberating. Guilty. I laughed weakly. Is it possible to feel all those at once? Absolutely, she assured me. But the guilt is programmed, Ethan. It's what your father has always used to control you. My phone buzzed with another call from my parents' house. The 30th of the day. I can't deal with any more of this right now, I admitted. Let's go somewhere for the weekend. Somewhere with spotty cell service. Melissa immediately suggested her cousin's cabin in the Vermont mountains. It's empty this time of year. Beautiful, peaceful, and the reception is terrible unless you're standing on a specific rock behind the house. 2 hours later, we were packed and on the road, heading north into the mountains. For the first time since the bank meeting, I felt like I could breathe. The constant barrage of calls and messages had been more draining than I realized. Do you think I'm running away? I asked Melissa as we drove through the darkening countryside. No, she said firmly. You're taking space to process. There's a difference. You're not abandoning the situation, you're preparing yourself to handle it better when you return. The cabin was everything we needed: rustic, cozy, and blessedly isolated. As promised, cell service was virtually non-existent. We spent Saturday hiking snow-covered trails, cooking comfort food, and not once checking our phones. For those precious hours, the mortgage drama seemed distant and manageable. Sunday morning arrived with a gentle snowfall that added to the peaceful atmosphere. We reluctantly packed our things, knowing that reality awaited us back in Boston. Whatever happens next, Melissa said as we locked up the cabin, remember how it felt to be here. This calm, this peace, it's what we're fighting for. I kissed her, grateful beyond words for her steadiness. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise, she teased. You were just too busy trying to please your father to notice. As we descended from the mountains, my phone suddenly exploded with notifications. Texts, voicemails, missed calls, emails, a weekend's worth of communication attempts flooding in at once. The number on my missed calls display made me grip the steering wheel tighter. 68 missed calls in less than 48 hours. "Oh my God!" Melissa breathed, looking at my phone screen. "Ethan, that's almost one call every half hour, around the clock." The most recent voicemail, left just 20 minutes earlier, wasn't from my father or mother or sister. It was from Gregory Wilson, their attorney, and his voice contained something I'd never expected to hear: panic. "Mr. Mitchell, this is urgent. Please contact me immediately. Your parents' financial situation is complex, and your removal from the mortgage has created a serious problem. We need to discuss options before the bank takes further action. Please call me as soon as possible." As we drove back toward Boston, I realized that I had just glimpsed the truth behind my father's iron control and sudden rage. This wasn't just about my engagement or independence. Something was very wrong with my parents' finances, and I had just pulled out the linchpin holding everything together. We arrived home Sunday evening to find our apartment building's visitor parking occupied by a familiar car, my father's black Lincoln Continental. My stomach tightened at the sight. "He's here," I said unnecessarily. Somehow I didn't think he'd actually drive down. Melissa squeezed my hand. "We knew this might happen. Do you want to go somewhere else?" I considered it briefly, then shook my head. "No. This has to be dealt with eventually. Might as well be now." We didn't see my father in the lobby or elevator, which added to my unease. When we reached our floor, however, the mystery was solved. A figure sat slumped against our apartment door, not my father, but my sister Rachel. She looked up at our approach, her face tear-streaked and exhausted. "Finally," she said, struggling to her feet. "I've been here for hours." "Rachel? What are you doing here? Where's Dad?" "We saw his car downstairs. I drove it. He doesn't know I'm here." She glanced at Melissa. "Can we talk inside?" "Please?" Once in the apartment, Rachel declined offers of food or drink, pacing our living room with nervous energy. "Dad doesn't know I came," she repeated. "He thinks I'm staying with a friend. Mom convinced him not to drive down himself. She was afraid he'd have another episode." "Episode?" I questioned. "What episode?" Rachel stopped pacing, giving me an incredulous look. "The one he had Friday night when his blood pressure spiked so high we almost took him to the emergency room. The one triggered by your little bank stunt." Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. "Rachel, what's really going on? Why did Dad freak out so completely over this?" She sank onto our couch, suddenly looking much older than her 29 years. "Because we're about to lose everything, Ethan. The house, the business, everything." For the next hour, Rachel laid out a financial nightmare I'd never suspected. My father's business had been struggling for years, not just recently. The original refinance I'd co-signed had been a desperate attempt to inject capital into the failing company. Since then, he'd been taking out additional equity whenever possible, robbing Peter to pay Paul in an increasingly precarious juggling act. The plan was to refinance again next month, Rachel explained. "Rates are lower now, and with your income still on the application, they could access another $70,000 in equity. That money was going to pay suppliers who are threatening to cut us off. Without it," she trailed off. "Without it, the business collapses," I finished. "And without the business income, they can't make the mortgage payments. Without the mortgage payments, they lose the house." Rachel looked at me accusingly. "Did you even think about any of this before you went to the bank?" "How could I? No one ever told me the truth about the business. Would you have listened if Dad tried? You've been pulling away for years." "That's not fair," Melissa interjected. "Ethan's parents have been manipulating him with money his entire life. This mortgage situation is just the latest example." Rachel turned to her, eyes flashing. "You don't know anything about our family." "I know enough," Melissa replied calmly. I know Ethan's father threatened him with a lawyer and canceled Christmas because of our engagement. I know he's used financial leverage to control his children's lives. And I know that hiding business failures while continuing to use your brother as financial backup without his knowledge is wrong. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, deflating slightly. It's complicated. It certainly is, I agreed. But Rachel, you have to understand I didn't do this to hurt anyone. I did it to protect myself after Dad essentially declared financial war. Well, congratulations on your protection plan, she said bitterly. Dad had a health scare, Mom hasn't stopped crying, their lawyer is in panic mode, and I'm watching my entire life crumble because the business that employs me is about to go under. Mission accomplished. Her words hit hard. Had I been so focused on my own liberation that I'd failed to consider the wider consequences? But then I remembered my father's controlling behavior, his threats, his dismissal of Melissa, and my resolve strengthened. Rachel, I'm sorry about Dad's health and everything else. But this situation isn't my creation. Dad built this house of cards, not me. My phone rang, displaying Gregory Wilson's number again. This time I answered. Mr. Mitchell, thank you for finally returning my calls, the attorney began, professionalism barely masking his relief. I didn't return your calls, I clarified. I'm just now getting back from a weekend away. What's this urgent situation you mentioned? Wilson explained the details Rachel had already shared, though in more technical legal terms. The bank had reviewed my parents' financial information and determined they couldn't support the mortgage without my income. They were giving my parents 30 days to either find a co-signer replacement, complete a refinance with another institution, or face potential foreclosure proceedings. Your father's business issues have created a precarious situation, Wilson concluded. The bank is particularly concerned about some late payments from last year that weren't disclosed to you as a co-borrower. That was new information. Late payments? I was never notified. Apparently they were made within the grace period, so no formal notifications were triggered. But they've become relevant now that the bank is scrutinizing the loan. After arranging to meet Wilson the following day at his office, I hung up and relayed the new information to Rachel and Melissa. Dad didn't tell me about late payments either, Rachel admitted, looking troubled. Because he knew how it would look, I said. Rachel, how much of the real financial situation do Mom and Dad actually share with you? Even though you work at the company? Her hesitation told me everything. I see the day-to-day operations, not the big financial picture. Dad handles that personally. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. So none of us really know how bad things are. The lawyer seems to think it's pretty bad, Melissa observed. Rachel stood abruptly. I should go. Dad will wonder where I am. Are you going to tell him you came here? She paused at the door. Not yet. But Ethan, you need to fix this. Whatever issues you have with Dad, this is bigger than just you now. After she left, I called the one person I knew would give me straight advice, my own lawyer, Stephanie Carter. Despite the late hour, she agreed to review my situation first thing in the morning. Don't make any commitments when you meet with their attorney tomorrow, she cautioned. Not until we've reviewed all the documents and understand exactly what you're dealing with. That night, sleep eluded me. The weight of 68 missed calls, my father's health scare, and the potential collapse of my family's financial stability pressed down on me. Had I been selfish? Reckless? Or was I finally taking necessary steps to break a toxic pattern? You did the right thing, Melissa murmured in the darkness, somehow reading my thoughts. Their financial problems aren't your responsibility, especially when they hid them from you. But if the business fails, if they lose the house, then those are consequences of your father's actions, not yours. You can choose to help them find solutions, but from a position of freedom, not obligation. As dawn broke, I made my decision. I would meet with the family lawyer, then with my own. I would get a complete, transparent picture of the situation. And then I would decide how to proceed based on facts, not manipulation or guilt. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. I would never again allow myself to be financially entangled without full knowledge and consent. The days of signing on dotted lines to keep the peace were over. Gregory Wilson's law office occupied the 10th floor of a downtown building with views of Boston Harbor. The decor spoke of old money and tradition: leather chairs, mahogany bookshelves, maritime paintings. The man himself matched his surroundings: silver-haired, Brooks Brothers suit, Harvard law diploma prominently displayed. I hadn't expected my parents to be present, but there they sat in Wilson's waiting area. My father rose as I entered, his face a complex mix of anger, relief, and something I rarely saw there: fear. "Ethan," he said stiffly. My mother rushed forward, embracing me tightly. "Thank goodness you're here," she whispered, as though I'd returned from war rather than a weekend away. Rachel sat slightly apart, giving me a small nod that conveyed both solidarity and warning. Wilson ushered us into a conference room, where my lawyer, Stephanie Carter, already waited. Her presence clearly surprised my parents. "You brought an attorney?" My father's tone suggested betrayal. "Just being thorough," I replied calmly. "Given that your last message to me mentioned expecting a call from your lawyer, it seemed prudent." Wilson cleared his throat. "Shall we begin? We're here to discuss the Mitchell family mortgage situation and potential paths forward." For the next hour, the full extent of my parents' financial troubles was laid bare. My father's business had been declining for 7 years, not just recently. The construction supply industry had changed, with larger chains squeezing out independent operators like him. Rather than adapt or downsize, he doubled down, taking increasingly risky financial measures to maintain the appearance of success. The mortgage I'd co-signed was just one piece of a complex web of loans, credit lines, and deferred payments. The house had been refinanced twice already, each time pulling out more equity. The business was operating at a monthly loss, sustained only by my father's financial maneuvering. "And you never thought to mention any of this to me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Even though my name and credit were directly involved?" My father's face flushed. "It wasn't your concern. I've always handled the family's finances. It became my concern the moment you had me co-sign a mortgage, Dad." Wilson intervened smoothly. "What's important now is finding a solution that works for everyone. The bank's 30-day timeline is our immediate concern." Stephanie spoke up. "Before discussing solutions, I'd like clarity on something. Mr. Mitchell," she addressed my father, "did you plan to inform my client about the additional refinancing you were pursuing using his credit?" The room went silent. My father shifted uncomfortably. "It was a temporary measure. The business is about to turn around with a Maxwell development contract." "So that's a no," Stephanie noted. "You intended to leverage his credit further without his knowledge or consent." "This isn't a courtroom," my father snapped. "No," I agreed. "It's actually worse. This is family, Dad. Family is supposed to be based on trust, not exploitation." My mother began to cry softly. Rachel stared at the table. My father looked as though he might explode, but Wilson placed a calming hand on his arm. "Perhaps," Wilson suggested, "we should focus on practicalities. The fact remains that without Ethan as a co-borrower, the current mortgage is at risk. The bank requires a resolution within 30 days. I took a deep breath. "I'm willing to help find a solution, but I have conditions." My father's eyes narrowed. "Conditions?" "Yes. First, complete financial transparency going forward. No more hidden problems, no more last-minute crises I'm expected to solve without question. Second, family relationships and financial relationships stay separate from now on. No more using money as leverage. No more financial threats when you disapprove of my personal choices." I glanced at Melissa, who had remained silent but supportive throughout. "Third, and most importantly, my relationship with Melissa is non-negotiable. She will be my wife, and she will be treated with respect by every member of this family." My father opened his mouth, likely to refuse, but my mother placed her hand on his. "Nathan," she said with unexpected firmness, listened to him. For perhaps the first time in my life, I watched my father struggle with the realization that he wasn't in control. His face cycled through emotions: anger, disbelief, calculation, and finally, grudging acceptance. "What kind of help are you offering?" he asked carefully. "I won't go back on the current mortgage," I clarified immediately. "That boundary stays. But I can help in other ways. I'll work with you and a financial advisor to restructure the business debt. I'll help find a path to make the mortgage sustainable for you and Mom. I'll even consider a short-term loan to bridge the gap while we figure things out." "A loan?" My father looked offended. "From you to me?" "Yes, Dad. With proper documentation, reasonable interest, and clear repayment terms. Like any other business transaction." The room fell silent again. I could see my father wrestling with his pride, with the fundamental shift in our relationship this represented. I was no longer the son who could be controlled through financial obligation. I was an equal offering assistance on my own terms. After what seemed like an eternity, he gave a short nod. "Fine. We'll try it your way." Wilson looked relieved. "Excellent. I suggest we arrange a meeting with a financial advisor as soon as possible to begin creating a structured plan." Stephanie suggested Marcus Reed, a financial advisor specializing in small business restructuring. Everyone agreed to meet with him later that week. As the meeting concluded, my mother hugged me again. "Will you come for dinner soon? We need to talk about Christmas." "Let's take things one step at a time, Mom," I said gently. "First the financial situation, then the family healing." Outside the building, Rachel caught up with me as Melissa waited by our car. "That was..." She seemed to search for the right word. "Unexpected." "Which part?" "All of it. You standing your ground. Dad actually listening. Mom speaking up." She looked at me with new respect. "Maybe I've been looking at this all wrong." "How so?" "I always thought keeping the peace was the right thing. Don't rock the boat. Don't challenge Dad. But watching you in there..." She shook her head. "Maybe the boat needed rocking. It's not too late for you to find your own independence too," I told her. "There's life beyond Dad's company." She smiled wryly. "One family revolution at a time, okay? Let's see how this financial restructuring goes first." As Rachel walked away, Melissa joined me. "So, not exactly the outcome your father expected when he left that voicemail, huh?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "Definitely not. He wanted to scare me back into line. Instead, he completely reversed our power dynamic. Are you ready for that responsibility? Helping save his business, being the financial advisor instead of the obedient son." I considered this as we got into the car. "I'm not saving his business, I'm helping him save it himself. And that's the difference that matters. It's support, not control." The financial advisor meeting was set for Thursday. It would be the beginning of a long, complicated process of untangling years of my father's financial maneuvering. But for the first time, it would happen with full transparency and clear boundaries. I had no illusions that one meeting had completely transformed my father or healed our family dynamics. The road ahead would include setbacks, resistance, and probably more than a few heated arguments. But something fundamental had shifted. I had claimed my independence, set my boundaries, and still found a way to offer help on my own terms. As we drove home, I realized that this was what real family support should look like: not coerced obligation, but freely chosen assistance. Not control disguised as care, but genuine respect for each other's autonomy. Whether my father could fully embrace this new reality remained to be seen. But I was no longer waiting for his approval to live my life. And that, regardless of what happened with the mortgage or the business, was the most valuable outcome of all. 3 months have passed since that pivotal meeting in Gregory Wilson's office. Winter has reluctantly given way to spring, and the financial and emotional landscapes of my family have transformed in ways I never could have predicted. Marcus Reed, the financial advisor, has been worth his weight in gold. His first session with my parents was brutal but necessary, a complete dissection of my father's business practices and personal financial habits. Dad actually walked out halfway through, unable to face the harsh realities being presented. But he returned the next day, humbled and finally ready to listen. The business has undergone radical restructuring. 3 unprofitable product lines have been eliminated. The oversized warehouse has been downsized, with half the space subleased to a compatible business. 5 employees were let go, though Dad managed to find positions for 3 of them with industry connections. The remaining staff, including Rachel, have clearly defined roles with appropriate compensation, no more family discount on labor. Most surprisingly, my father has stepped back from day-to-day operations, focusing instead on sales, where his personal relationships with builders still hold value. Rachel has taken over administrative management, revealing an aptitude for organization that has already improved efficiency. The business will survive, Marcus told me during our most recent review. It won't be the empire your father envisioned, but it can be a stable, profitable operation if he sticks to the plan. The mortgage situation resolved through a combination of approaches. My parents sold their vacation cabin in New Hampshire, a property they rarely used but had kept as a status symbol. That payment reduced the principal significantly. The remaining balance was refinanced with another bank at a slightly higher interest rate, but without requiring a cosigner. The new monthly payment is manageable within their restructured budget. My mother has undergone perhaps the most surprising transformation. After decades of playing peacekeeper and enabler, she's found her voice. During our second family therapy session with Dr. Jennifer Lawson, Mom shocked everyone by articulating exactly how Dad's financial control had affected her. "I haven't had my own credit card in 27 years, she revealed. "I have no idea what our actual financial situation is at any given time. I just know what I'm allowed to spend on groceries each week." 2 weeks later, she opened her own checking account. Small steps, but meaningful ones. Last Sunday, we had our first drama-free family dinner. Melissa sat beside me, engaged in genuine conversation with my mother about wedding plans. Dad made an awkward but sincere attempt to ask about her marketing work. Rachel showed us photos of the apartment she's planning to move into next month. Her first time living independently at 29. As we were leaving, my father pulled me aside. The old Nathan Mitchell would have used this moment to reassert control or slip in a subtle dig. Instead, he simply said, "Thank you for not walking away completely. You could have." "We're family, Dad," I replied. "That doesn't change. But how we treat each other had to." He nodded, uncomfortable but trying. "Your fiancée seems competent." From my father, this qualified as effusive praise. I smiled. "She's extraordinary. You'll see that more clearly with time." The wedding is set for October. My parents will attend, not as financial backers trying to control every detail, but as guests celebrating our choice. Melissa's family will host, which initially troubled my father's pride but now seems to bring him relief. Looking back at that December voicemail that started everything, I'm amazed at how a moment of crisis became an opportunity for transformation. By removing my name from that mortgage, I wasn't just protecting my financial future, I was redefining our entire family dynamic. The lessons have been profound. Financial entanglement with family carries emotional costs far beyond the dollars involved. What seems like a simple signature can become an invisible chain, restricting your ability to set healthy boundaries. Control disguised as help is still control. My father's financial assistance always came with expectations of compliance and gratitude. Real support respects autonomy and comes without strings attached. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships. By refusing to continue our dysfunctional patterns, I created space for something better to grow. Change rarely happens comfortably. The 68 missed calls, my father's health scare, the family turmoil, all were painful parts of a necessary process. True transformation seldom occurs without crisis. Healing is possible, but it requires honesty. Our family therapy sessions have been difficult but crucial. Years of unspoken resentments, and patterns needed to be named before they could be addressed. Melissa and I have emerged stronger, both as individuals and as a couple. Our shared navigation of this family storm has reinforced what I already knew: she is the partner I want beside me for all of life's challenges. As for the future, I have cautious optimism. My father still struggles with the new reality, occasionally slipping into old controlling habits. My mother sometimes reverts to peacekeeping rather than truth-telling. Rachel wavers between embracing independence and falling back into familiar patterns. But we're really talking about money, about feelings, about expectations. The superficial harmony maintained by compliance has been replaced by something messy but more authentic. Next Christmas won't be cancelled after all. We're planning a gathering at Rachel's new apartment, neutral territory where no one person controls the environment. It won't be perfect, but it will be real. If you're watching this and recognizing your own family's patterns, I hope my story gives you courage. Setting boundaries, especially financial ones, is incredibly difficult with family. The guilt, the accusations of selfishness, the potential fallout, all of it can seem overwhelming. But living under someone else's control is no way to build your own life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and ultimately for them is to break the pattern, even when it feels like you're breaking the relationship. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle the aftermath? Let me know in the comments. And if you found value in my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and lessons learned. Thank you for listening, for your support, and for being part of this journey. Remember, the hardest boundaries to set are often the ones most worth fighting for.